All right, let us discuss the National Football League. And, all right, I'm just going to go ahead and do this. Look, the argument's going to be had. Well, New England hasn't played anybody yet. You know what? And they beat the hell out of Cleveland this week, who has a decent enough schedule going forward that Cleveland could push for a playoff spot. I know how crazy that sounds, but look at their schedule over the next 5 weeks. It's not out of the realm of possibility that they can get back into the hunt. The New England Patriots are just the best. They won the Super Bowl, and this coming week they're in Baltimore. So that game in Baltimore is going to be huge. And after that game in Baltimore, they could very well run the table. So the game in Baltimore is going to be their biggest test. And if they pass that with flying colors, I can likely just tattoo them at number one on this board and be done with it. That being said, number 32 should surprise no one. It's the 0-7 Miami Dolphins. These are the placeholders on the board, and everything else in between could potentially move, except that number 31 is Cincinnati. Now, Cincinnati has a bye this week, which is good, because they've been waving bye to the playoffs since week one. And I say that as a Bengals fan. God, I don't know why I'm a Bengals fan. But I will say this, at least this year they're not making me mad with a choke job in the playoffs. This year at least they're nowhere near playoffs. There's no route that they could take. They could win 8 in a row. Not going to happen, but they could win 8 in a row and it's still... And here's the great thing. Heard Don Timmons said yesterday, these two teams play each other in Week 17. You excited? You should be. That's going to be a great matchup. They're predicting a tie. I can't argue with that logic at all. For people watching Miami to see who they're going to lose to this week, they're at home against the Jets. That's... Dear Lord. Number 30 at 1-7 is Washington. Washington, they are playing in Buffalo this week. So for Buffalo, who had a really rough week, they get a reprieve where now they get to play against Washington at home. And that should be a very winnable game for Buffalo. Because Washington, while they're not as bad as these two, they're not a whole lot better. Number 29. They're 1-7. They have the week off this week, and that's Atlanta. And I'm still surprised at Atlanta's record. I'm going to be honest. I really thought at the start of the year that these guys at least would be around a 500 team. I didn't see 1-7 coming. I didn't see playoffs either, but I figured respectable. And I thought Matt Ryan got off to a good start to the year and all that wonderful stuff. But again, that dividing line between winning and losing can be difficult. Next up, these guys are playing in Miami this week. They're 1-6, and that's the Jets. So we will find out if Miami really is the worst team in the history of football by the end of the year. The game against the Jets, the game against the Bengals, those are winnable games for anybody that's not Miami. Very winnable, or Dallas. Dallas didn't do it. So for Miami, if they're going to win, this week's a good week to do it. That might be an ugly game to watch between number 28 and number 32. But hey, I just report on this stuff. Number 27, these guys are 2-6. They haven't reached their bye week yet. Monday game, they're at home against Dallas. And even though they're 2-6, the Giants, I expect a really good game between them and Dallas because there's a lot of hate there over the years, over the decades, over history of football. Anyways, for the Giants, there was optimism very briefly, and then it went away. There's still optimism about a good young quarterback, but about the team in general, that's not this year. It's just not this year. Although that division does look vulnerable, right? Number 26, these guys are 2-5. They're going to Denver this week. So, like I said, Cleveland, who are down in this row for good reason, they go to Denver. They have some winnable games coming up. I believe they have a game against Cincinnati in a few weeks. They have some winnable games coming up. If they can string something together here, Cleveland could end up surprising people in the second half of the season. This is a team that could go on a bit of a run in the second half of the season. I'm not betting on it because I don't bet on football. It's not something I do. But it could happen. Number 25. And these guys this week are going to play at home against Green Bay. So they're 3-5. That's why I'm wearing the Chargers, because they won this week. Doesn't happen often. And now they're against Green Bay, so they're not winning this week. This team went out this week, and what they did was they proved that one team that I had high up on the boards, and I was saying, I'm going to keep giving the benefit of the doubt. Oh, you lost to the Chargers? Benefit of the doubt is gone. Chargers at 25. Number 24. These guys are 2-6. And this week they're at home against Cleveland, and that's Denver. I debated about whether or not to have Denver lower than that, but you know what? It's fine. Anything from 24 and down, highly, highly, highly unlikely to make the playoffs. Again, it can happen. Or if, Cleveland goes on a run, I guess the Chargers could go on a run. I guess the Chiefs could fail without their starting quarterback. I guess this could all happen in theory. But, no. Number 23. These guys are 3-4-1. They're at home against San Francisco this week. Now, Cardinals fans have said for weeks that I'm not respecting the team. And I understand why they'd say it. However, 3-4-1, not a winning record. And they're highly unlikely to make the playoffs. But at home against San Francisco, they can show me and pundits everywhere, hey, we're a good team and we may not make the playoffs, but we're going to make this tough on people. So for the Cardinals, big week for them coming up. And just overall trying to keep that playoff hope alive. As faint as it might be, they're trying to keep that alive. Number 22. These guys are 2-5. They're going to Seattle. And honestly, I Tampa, that's the one where I kind of agonized. I kind of went, to Tampa or the Cardinals. So I could have put the Cardinals here. I could have put Tampa here. I could have put Tampa below Denver, even below the Chargers potentially. And yet I like Tampa. I do. The record just doesn't show it. The record does not reflect that for them. Number 21, I should say. These guys are currently sitting at 4-4, and they're going to Carolina. So where Tennessee might benefit is a wounded Carolina team that's all destroyed from the game they just played against San Francisco. Realistically, I don't see Tennessee winning the game. That being said, they are maintaining a 500 record. They're staying right around the middle, and they could go on a bit of a run in the second half of the year themselves. 4-4 record, you're not done. Especially depending on which division you're in, you're really not done. But for Tennessee, I do want to kind of see more from them than what we've seen thus far. Just that consistent week in and week out. That's how 4-4 works. Number 20. These guys are 3-4, and they are playing at home against Indianapolis this week. You know what? You want to take an upset? I would be tempted to take the Steelers over the Colts. Not as any disrespect to the Colts, but because I think the Steelers at 3-4 are dangerous. And I think that, again, in a division that should be sealed up, and it really should be. For Pittsburgh, this is the week. This is the week where they show, hey, we're still in this. They go to 4-4, or they fall back to 3-5 and kind of a better luck next year situation, because potentially Baltimore goes to 6-2 this week, potentially. But again, this is kind of a big week for everybody. Number 19, these guys are 4-4. They're at home against Houston. Might end up being game of the week between Jacksonville and Houston. Absolutely. Jacksonville, if they can go to 5-4. And here's the thing. So both these teams are 4-4, and for many years I would mix up, and I don't know why, Jacksonville and Tennessee. I don't have a clue why, but those are the two teams that I would get mixed up with one another, and their records match, because of course they do. And we'll see who the better team is between the two of them as soon as this week. Jacksonville, 4-4 is I believe better than most predicted them to be at this point in the season. And again, somebody needs to go on a run in the second half. Why not the Jaguars? Number 18. Oh, what a dive these guys took this week. I gave them the benefit of the doubt. Now they're going into play against the Eagles. They're down to 3-4. And again, I gave Chicago the benefit of the doubt last week because of the fact that it was a close-ish game against a really good team. This week, no such luck. You lose against the Chargers, you take a nosedive. So, believe they were 10th last week. This week, they're 18th. So that's easily the biggest nosedive anybody's taken. And again, it's back-to-back losses, and it's who you lose to as well. Number 17. They're 3-4, and they're at home against Detroit. You want to look at a team that needs to get a win and get themselves back into contention. It's Oakland. And I've been saying all year, Oakland's really up and down. They're inconsistent. You end up in this row when you're inconsistent. And yeah, we'll see. So with them at home against Detroit, that should be a win. That being said, at 3-1, Detroit is going to be motivated. Detroit, they're in a situation where if they want to remain relevant in the playoff conversation, which once we get to week 11, it starts to really become clear who's in and who's on the cusp of potentially being in. If they want to be one of those cusp teams, you go in and beat Oakland this week. There's no two ways about it. That tie, it kind of hurts. If you had that win, if it's 4-3, then 5-3. But for Detroit, big week. They're back in the top two rows. They should feel pretty good about that. I don't think they're gonna care where they are in my power rankings. I don't think there's a Detroit Lion anywhere that's excited about that. I'd be very surprised. Number 15, coming off of the bye week, and on Monday they're going in against the Giants. They're 4-3 currently, and that is the Dallas Cowboys. And I have no idea what to expect from Dallas against the New York Giants. They should win that game, but they've lost games they should win already this year. We'll see. We'll see if they're on another hot streak, if that's going to continue, or if we're going to see them go ice cold again. Dallas, really up in the air with them. Number 14, these guys are at home against the Chicago Bears. They're 4-4, and that's the Eagles. So what are the Eagles right now? Yeah, 4-4 is the answer. And again, I have them ahead of the Cowboys, even though the Cowboys have the better record, because the Eagles, I think, are the better team than the Cowboys. We'll see how long that's the case. This division, crazy. And not a good crazy. There's some good crazy in the NFC, but it is not in that division. Number 13. These guys are now 4-3. They're at home against Tennessee, and you know what? You look at the beating Carolina got put on them, and I have not looked at other NFL power rankings. I would not be surprised to see them take a nosedive in other power rankings based on how they got whooped. I look at that and I say, you know what? Who are they against? Right. Did it get out of their control? Absolutely. I'm not going to bump them down a whole lot until we see how they do this week at home against the Tennessee Titans. So if they lose to the Titans, yeah, we'll see them down in this row next week. But again, much like Chicago the week before, I look at that and I go, all right, who are they against? Okay, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm not going to lose my mind that this team's just awful. That happens a lot in the NFL. You have one bad game and then everybody's just like, off the bandwagon, out you go. One good game, that's all right, everybody back on. Jump back on. Number 12, these guys are 5-2 and they're going to Pittsburgh this week, and that's the Indianapolis Colts. I've been told I disrespect the Colts by having them lower than some of the other teams on the board. Again, you know, at the start of the year when Luck retired, there was some speculation that they could still be a playoff team, but they weren't necessarily a Super Bowl threat. I still see that. I still see a team that pretty darn good, but, you know, and the record reflects that, but I don't know that I see them as a threat in the Super Bowl or to get to the Super Bowl. Something, again, going through what I watched with Tim and Sid on Sports Night yesterday, Sid even said that if New England beats Baltimore, he's going to stop watching any American football conference games. AFC games are just shut down for him because then it's just New England and everybody else. And the funny thing was, I looked at my power rankings board when he said it, and I thought, wow, the NFC really dominates the top 10 on power rankings on my board. And I had not thought about it. Really hadn't. I just put teams up there according to how I think they're playing. And yeah, the NFC is definitely the better conference overall. Which means that you may end up in a Super Bowl situation where the AFC teams had kind of an easier route getting there. Number 11, you could also have a real surprise from the AFC in the playoffs, make it to the Super Bowl. Number 11, these guys are 5-3. They have the week off this week, and that's the LA Rams. The Rams are getting it back together. They were expected to be a contender. They're on pace for a 10-6 record. That's not bad. That should get them into the playoffs. But again, with the division they're in, that could put them third in the division. So that is a really, really strange situation to be in, where 10-6 could have you third. And it's a good division. So the Rams are trying to dig their way out. They're going to have chances to do that in the second half of the season, absolutely. But should there be concerns for fans of the Rams? Yep, that as well. Because again, when you're behind two other teams in your division, making the playoffs can get kind of perilous, which is ridiculous for a team that's 10-6. But again, the NFC's pretty strong. Number 10, these guys are 5-3. They're in Jacksonville this week, and that's Houston. The Texans again, right? And they're another one that I've seen people say, oh, you're disrespecting them. Look where you have them. And yet the week after, the result's just not there. And then the week after, the result is there. So there will be people who say they're too low. There may be people who feel they're too high. Again, I try not to make these rankings really reactionary. So if a team has a really good game and they get a really lopsided score, I think, it's fine. That's great. But I'm not going to make this some massive shift for that team or some massive shift against the team that lost that game. Number 9. These guys are 5-2, and this is kind of a big week for them. They're at home against the Washington team that is 1-7. And so 5-2. Buffalo. I know, their defense, everybody loved their defense, and now this week their defense didn't look very good. And so there will be some panic in Buffalo fandom. My one concern for Buffalo has been that they've had a really good start. And that's great. And in that division, other than the giant monster that is New England, it's not a division that's hard to win 4 games against. So I'm talking about against the Jets and against Miami. So that's 4 wins right there, right? So let's say you're 4-2 in your division. Now, you just have to win, say, 6 outside of your division? That's reachable. But this week was a rough week for Buffalo. And so I've dropped them down. I didn't drop them. Again, I didn't drop them a lot. But I dropped them a bit because I think there's some concerns there. All right, number 8. These guys are 5-2, and this is their week. So, Ravens fans, who I know are also among the fandoms that feel disrespected by the power rankings. If the Ravens, who are back in the top row, I said somebody would lose and put them back in the top row during their bye week. The Ravens are going to show that they're contenders. All you got to do is beat those guys this week, and I agree. Absolutely agree. All Baltimore's got to do is beat New England. That thing that teams have been trying to do for years. Just go beat New England. Oh, just beat New England. I will just get right on that. So, yeah, we'll see what Baltimore has got going for them this week. And if they go to 6-2, I'm almost guaranteeing they end up at about 4th on the power rankings next week. And New England likely takes a dive out of number 1 if they lose the game this week. So there's a lot on the line, and yet again, NFL teams aren't going to care. Number 7, these guys are 5-3. They're at home against Minnesota this week. If KC loses this game at home against Minnesota this week, they will very likely find themselves out of the top row next week. I look at Houston as a team that can jump up. I look at the Ravens definitely with a chance against New England. And, of course, if Buffalo just has a week where they win what they should, KC could find themselves as low as 10th. And it's tough because, again, it's an understandable situation where if KC's going to slump, they're going to slump. But, I have to go with the wins and losses and all that. So I'm not overreacting to this week's result because it's not like they lost to Miami or Cincinnati. But again, for Kansas City, there are going to be some concerns going forward. Number 6, these guys are 6-2. And they're at home against Tampa Bay. So for Seattle, there's a very good chance they go to 7-2 this week. And I don't know if there's a team that could go to 7-2 that's being talked about less than Seattle. That being said, we see a lot of teams right now with really good records. We have got 6 teams in football on pace for at least 12 wins. We have 2 on pace for 14, and 2 of them look like they could run the table and get 16. So, again, that's going to even out a little bit in the second half of the season. And for Seattle, they've put themselves in an excellent position, not just to make the playoffs, but to surprise some people in the playoffs. So, congrats to them. And again, it is one tough division for them and for the Rams to be in. This is really a brutal division. Number 5, these guys are 6-2. They're going to Kansas City this week, and that's Minnesota. So the Vikings, who it's not that long ago we were talking about, it looks like they're probably done. No. They're 6-2. The results tell you that they're not. And this week, going to Kansas City, and again, you can look and go, well, without Mahomes. But here's the thing. If they go in and beat Kansas City, they're 7-2. That's all they need to do to get 7-2. So that'd be fantastic for them, right? Number 4, these guys are 7-1, and they're going in against the LA Chargers this week. So for Green Bay, it'd be easy to overlook the Chargers. Green Bay doesn't really do that, though. That's how you get 7-1. The teams that overlook teams end up 5-3. Even as a Chargers fan, I can't make the math work. I can't. Unless Aaron Rodgers and half the team miss their flight, and they're not actually there. I can't make the math work. I would imagine Green Bay goes to 8-1, and the NFC is pretty darn good. At 7-1, these guys have the week off, and they've earned it. New Orleans, they don't have Drew Brees. They're 7-1. What happens when Drew Brees comes back? This is a Super Bowl contender in New Orleans. This is absolutely a team in New Orleans that they could win another Super Bowl. And I'd be very happy for them if they did. This is a team that I remember. I still remember the era where they couldn't win a game. If it was a New Orleans game, didn't matter if they were home on the road, that they weren't going to win. And it got to the point where I was really cheering for them to win, and then when they'd lose, I'd be like, oh, well, that makes sense. And so a hard luck franchise like theirs, it's nice to see them getting some good luck in the midst of what was bad luck with the injury to Drew Brees. So they're 7-1, and we'll see just how much better they get, which means at 7-0, they're going into Arizona this week. The argument could be made, and it's being made all over, about San Francisco versus New England. Unless they end up against each other in the Super Bowl, this argument, I think, is going to continue throughout the season, because I could see both teams right now ending up 16-0. I'd be very surprised if San Francisco, with the way they're playing right now, if they went in against the Cardinals and came out with anything less than a win. This team is fantastic, and they've really how do I put this? I'm old enough to remember Montana. I'm not old. I'm old enough to remember Young. And this team right now, the record they have, the run they're on, kind of reminds me of those teams. And it's without a Montana at the helm. And I say that because I think Montana was the best big game quarterback. I can't say of all time because Tom Brady is that guy. He's the best quarterback ever. But, man, Montana was pretty darn flawless back in the day. And then Young came in, and Young was not flawless, but he added a whole different element with the running game that he possessed. It just wasn't fair. It was absolutely unfair to the rest of the National Football League. This kind of feels like that. And it kind of feels like this is a team in San Francisco that could do this for a while. So we'll see. So there you go. There's your power rankings for this week. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always, and people always will. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video and we're done for another week. Thank you guys so much for all your support. It means a ton, and I'll talk to you again soon.